In today's crowded advertising market, finding an edge is essential. And the biggest driver of success is often the creative. Studies show it. Nielsen reports that creativity fuels 56% of a campaign's sales ROI, while Google reports that 70% of success comes down to the creative itself. The brands that win aren't just seen, they are remembered. And creative that knows where it lives plays a big part in that. That's why today we are talking about platform-specific creative. Welcome to Humanology on Air. Today we are joined by Jen Kelly's own creative director, Kate Petrie, and senior art director, Mark Walters. Kate, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So Kate, we will start with you. Why is platform-specific creative such a critical focus for brands right now?
Platform-specific creative has never been more important because the pressure to perform has never been higher. Industry decision makers are having to do more with fewer resources, which is really causing marketing teams to have to drive impact with less resources and keeping costs down and making sure that every creative decision they make is fully intentional.
I agree. This is on the mind of a lot of marketers because they're trying to stay competitive, and the old one-size-fits-all creative approach doesn't work anymore because consumer expectations and platform requirements and algorithms are more demanding than ever.
Now, we know that marketers understand the need to develop platform-specific creative, but we also know that sometimes that can come with challenges. Kate, what are some of the pain points you hear expressed by clients?
I think one of the biggest and most obvious challenges we're seeing is that audience expectations differ on every platform. So whereas on LinkedIn, the audience might be expecting deep, rich content or sound bites or quick takeaways, on Instagram, people are expecting more visual content. It's kind of catering to these needs that is the biggest challenge. It's making sure that you're creating content that resonates with these different audience groups.
And aside from audience preferences, there are so many options and unique specifications for the platforms. Mark, I know you work a lot in this space. Surely you have some thoughts on this.
Absolutely. It's a big challenge that we see in the industry and something that we've experienced ourselves. Platforms keep changing. Their algorithms, formats, and metrics are constantly being updated. It makes it really hard to stay up to date with the latest and best specs and options. Actually, just last month, Instagram decided to update the size of their grid images, causing a huge stir. All these changes mean that we're constantly having to update not only assets, but strategies.
Okay, so I think I know where this is going. All of these changes takes time, and with time comes money. So am I right on that?
You are correct. This challenge is present most of the time, but now more than ever, budgets are extremely limited, which makes it challenging to create unique creative for every platform.
So now we get into the big question. You have noted that audience expectations differ on every platform, that platforms are constantly changing, and that budgets are only getting smaller. So how do we help clients overcome these challenges? Kate?
One thing that marketers can do is really develop a deep expertise within these platforms. So it's not just about advertising on them, but actively engaging with them. So paying attention to content preferences, to algorithm changes, even to audience behaviors within these platforms. That's where you'll really understand what the audience is looking for and the opportunities that you have on each of those individual platforms. A great example of this is what we did with Mitsubishi Motors Canada with Bananas for Scale. So would you traditionally demonstrate a vehicle's features by comparing them to a banana? Absolutely not. However, we saw this as a trend on Reddit, so we ran with it and we spoke to our audience within the Reddit tone of voice with Bananas for Scale, and it really resonated with them. It not only gained traction for the Mitsubishi brand within this audience, but it also won us a Gold Ava Digital Award.
So Kate, you mentioned this trend on Reddit that you saw. I'm assuming there's tons and tons of trends out there. How on earth are you staying on top of them?
Well, I would love to say that we're doing it alone. However, it really comes down to leveraging and building strong partnerships with the different vendors and platforms to keep up with those changes. By doing this, you can gain exclusive access into new ad formats, new betas, algorithm changes, everything that will help you better understand your audience. And that combined with keeping super close to your internal media teams will gain new invaluable insights that drive better, stronger, more effective creative.
For example, we worked with our partners at TikTok to leverage popular trends and use the in-platform audio to announce our Glidden Paints Color of the Year. This way we were able to reveal the color of the year with assets that felt native to the platform and didn't feel like ads.
I love that. But as you guys mentioned before, I know that budgets are kind of shrinking across the board. So it makes me wonder how are, agencies, marketers, brands managing kind of the time and effort that goes into creating bespoke creative while trying to be as cost efficient as possible.
It's really about being surgical with your approach and knowing when to use custom creative and invest in that versus using more simpler solutions that are also scalable. Not everything needs to be customized perfectly to be relevant. Try focusing on using tailored creative for those high impact moments when they're going to be the most effective. And then you can use AI tools to achieve a similar level of customization when efficiency is the priority.
So we see our writers using AI tools for search. We see people using it for quick variations to deal in different platform specs. And it's really just become a tool that we use in our everyday lives to add that efficiency.
We've used AI to keep budgets low. For example, animating static assets has allowed us to customize creative without overspending on the solution.
And we've had our failures too. I mean, we've tried to use AI for voiceover and we learned that it has not mastered the Quebecois accent. So we learn as we go.
I love that example. Better to fail fast and learn, I suppose. So you've both given us some really great examples of how you've utilized these best practices. Surely there are others out in the world doing some great work. I'd love to hear some examples of some of the things that you've seen. Would you mind sharing some with us?
One example that comes to mind for me is Nissan. They demonstrated such a great understanding of their audience and the platform with their Powerfully Peaceful campaign.
I do remember that one. That one was on YouTube, right?
Yes. When Nissan launched the Area, they wanted to relieve some of the typical EV range anxiety concerns. They tapped into the popularity of lo-fi music videos on YouTube and seamlessly integrated an ad into one of the top lo-fi channels. Instead of the typical 6-second spot, they combined some of that soothing, calming lo-fi music with a 4-hour animated driving video to demonstrate the range and peace of mind of driving one of their new EVs. It matched the aesthetic of the channel so well that viewers often watched for hours before even realizing that they were watching an ad.
I remember that. It was so fun, and it demonstrated such a good understanding of what the audience wants from the platform and then kind of harnessing and amplifying it for your own benefit.
Another great example of really understanding not only their audience, but the platform itself is the Heinz bottleneck campaign. So they partnered with Waze and targeted Canadians stuck in summer traffic, which we can all relate to. And when the traffic slowed to the speed of ketchup pouring, which I think was 0.04 kilometers an hour, their customers were rewarded with a voucher for ketchup as well as a Burger King Whopper. So not only did they use kind of a niche audience pain point, but also really unique features of the platform to create a relevant experience and really engage with their customers in a fun way.
The idea of kind of leaning into function is so interesting because it's not just about the content or the tone of the content, it's about how people are interacting with it.
Exactly. You see a lot of this on YouTube. There are actually some really great examples of creative that's built around the usability of the skip button, getting people to either click it or to avoid it in really interesting ways.
We also see people taking one piece of content and serving it up different ways. So what might live as a musical number on a traditional TV spot is then broken down into a dance tutorial for TikTok. So you're serving it up depending on what the audience is looking for on that individual platform.
So let's dive into any outstanding questions that we hear in the industry. Kate, I'll start with you. Creating all of these variations that we've talked about, marketers are going to ask, how do we know that they're going to work?
Well, we experiment and we test. So this helps us really determine what resonates with those individual audiences. It starts by not only having really clear learning goals of what you're trying to achieve, but then evaluating that creative through different metrics, be it conversion rates, be it A/B test results, and then really being able to optimize that creative for the next time you run a campaign.
As we look ahead, how do we see platform-specific creative evolving, especially with AI and other new emerging technologies coming into play?
AI will allow us to be more hyper-personalized and to create dynamic content that adapts to user behavior in real time. AI will also help us streamline production, optimize creative variations, and improve predictive analytics. And the result is just going to be better ads.
And lastly, with the platforms constantly evolving, how are you staying on top of trends to ensure that your creative is always relevant?
Staying ahead of the curve certainly requires effort. It involves watching for platform updates, audience behavior shifts, and really trialing and understanding new technologies that are emerging, as well as engaging your partners, as I mentioned before. But the biggest one, I would say, is really utilizing the platforms. I know I mentioned it earlier, but getting in there and actually understanding and utilizing the platforms yourself is really going to go the furthest in understanding what you, as an audience, are expecting from each of them individually.
As we wrap, one thing is clear. If you want to make an impact, get creative. Attention is fleeting, and creative that respects its platform is much more likely to be noticed. Mark, Kate, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
If you are ready to explore platform-specific creative or want more insights on how to elevate your overall marketing strategy, you can connect with us or watch other episodes of Humanology on Air on our website at jankelly.com. Thanks for watching.